YouTube. We are live. All right, so I'm going to make this one pretty quick because of the content of what I'm going to be discussing. Let me see if I can fix this here. There. All right. So, recently, a friend of the channel, Eboh, who is the host or the person you see on Eboh Media. Eboh was popular for his travel videos and his drone videos, not just throughout Eboh land, but throughout West Africa. He has some in Asia. Throughout West Africa, he has some in Asia, and from when we last spoke, he was planning on traveling the whole of Africa, right? So very recently, Eboh passed away. He was, I don't know the full story, so I don't want to make this like a news report type of situation because again, I don't know the story. I wanted to wait till after the funeral to talk about it because just as it's kind of an unspoken custom in our land that it's you have to make sure that all family members know something happened pertaining to death before you announce it before a stranger. Like it's not good for a stranger to be the reason a family member knows that another family member passed, right? And so I wanted to wait till after the funeral to talk about it. But Eboh recently passed away. He was very young, and he was on his way back from shooting, I believe, shooting a video, and was caught by kidnappers or was held hostage by kidnappers, and things were what they were, and unfortunately he passed away. Now, the reason I wanted to go live and talk about Eboh is because I think Eboh is one of the most, and this has little to do with him passing away. Me saying this has little to do with him passing away. I think Eboh is one of the most important people, if however you want to classify his work, be it journalism, be it in education, be it in travel, be it in just enlightening people about Africa, right? I think he's one of the most important people of our generation, possibly of all time. And this sounds hyperbolic or big, but I mean every word of it. When he first started this channel, I emailed him and said as much, right? The reason is because if you go to his channel, Eboh Media, you will see several drone videos of different cities in Eboh land, right? Several drone videos of different cities in Eboh land, which is what drew me to his channel immediately. And others have started doing the same thing since, right? Others have started doing the same thing since him. There are other channels. I'm friends with a couple of them that do. I'm a fan of it. So if you go to their channels, you'll probably see me in the comment section. Others have started doing it since, but he was, to my knowledge, and I honestly, I don't doubt it at all that he was the first one to do this, right? Now, the reason it was important was because after the Civil War, for those of you who don't know Igbo history, there was a civil war in Nigeria. And the civil war in Nigeria was Igbo people, Biafrans, versus the Nigerian government, the federal government. This was during the Cold War in the 60s. And this was one of the only situations where the Russians and the West were both allied against somebody, being the Igbo people, right? So it was Igbo people, and in all reality, versus Nigeria, England, Russia, I'm trying to think of the other ones, Egypt, just this random collection of countries, right? And most of Eboh land was bombed to the ground. It was completely flattened, right? Most of Eboh land was bombed to the ground. My dad tells me stories during the war. He was a small child in that time, where if an airplane was flying over your home or flying over your community, and they saw evidence of a roof. All they had to see was that there was a roof, a man-made roof. They would immediately bomb that thing, right? So any standing structure was to be bombed, right? 3 million people died at the end of this war. During that war, what they would, as very young men, I think he was like, he had to have been maybe 10 or 9, 11-ish age. They would have to climb on top of people's roofs and cover it with trees, like foliage, bushels and leaves and things like that, so that when the airplanes flew over it, it didn't look like anybody lived there because it's a forest, so if you had foliage, it looks hidden, right? And so, if what would happen is the British planes, the Russian planes, the Nigerian planes, and Egyptian planes, especially the Egyptian ones, would be flying over and just blowing up anything they saw, any standing structure. It didn't matter. They'd blow up any standing structure. It didn't matter, right? Um, and so, most of the cities in Igbo land were bombed to the ground, right? Most of them were flattened. They didn't exist, right? And in 15 years, maybe 10-ish years, they were all built back. Everything was built back, right? Everything was built back. You couldn't you if you go to Eboh land now, you wouldn't believe that there was a war that killed 3 million people. I'm not saying that it's like the nicest looking place in the world or super developed, but most of it was built back, right? But why Eboh matters is because after that war, I think that my parents' generation, there's this trauma that they had that caused them to build these things at a feverish pace, right? And very quickly and that type of thing. And but in our minds, right, as a people, these we still saw the area as rubble. It's hard to explain, but we still saw Igbo land as rubble, right? Nobody could tell you that Owerri was a beautiful looking city. Nobody could tell you that Onitsha was a beautiful looking city. Nobody can tell you that Enugu was a beautiful looking city. Aba, all these places, right? Because we didn't. There was just this build, 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 build mentality. Nobody had time to even look up. And what Ebo did for everybody was he allowed us to step back and look at what has been done, right? To step back and look at what has been done. And so for a people that lost absolutely everything, like absolutely everything, if you can, there's no other way to say it, but for people who lost absolutely everything and almost as a trauma response, just focused on building and building and doing and doing and doing, it was very hard for us to step back and look and see where we're actually at, right? Which, if you're not from the region, the significance of that would be hard for me to explain, right? It would be hard for somebody to understand. But what he did, was a very simple thing. He would go to these cities. He wouldn't go to his town. He wouldn't go, it wasn't about going showing you what he had in his town or bigging up his state or anything like that. He would go any and everywhere. He would put on his drone and he'd show it from above. And like overnight, no exaggeration, everybody's understanding of themselves changed, right? Because if you'd talk to people, like let's call it 10 years ago, talk to people about these places, and they start like it would sound like these people were like still in a war. Like they would talk about it in this very grim, very harsh way. It would be very difficult for somebody to say, "Oh wow, that place looks nice." The next thing will happen is, "What are you talking about?" Right? And he allowed people to step outside and see what had been done and see that these places had value and they were beautiful and they were, all the time like, oh, we need to be more organized. We don't have to organize. And then you zoom out, it's like, oh wow, this place is actually very well organized and so on and so forth. And people have done well for themselves and that kind of thing. And he allowed us to see that. Now, one of the reasons that matters a lot is because as African people, and when I say African people, I mean the entire diaspora from Caribbean, North America, UK, and all those things, it is very difficult to have that moment where we get to stop and breathe and say, "Wow, we've done well. Look at what we have," because we're bombarded with negative perceptions of self. We're bombarded with negative messages about self, negative images about self, so on and so forth. Right? So that when you say, like, it blows people's minds. Sometimes I say things in the channel that's very normal, like, okay, they used to do surgery. Oh wow, we used to do surgery. That things like that will blow your mind. But it's like, yes, of course they did, right? Yes, of course they did. But why is it hard to believe? Because we're bombarded with so much negativity that to tell people that we did something that is just like very normal as a part of the human experience, sometimes it's unbelievable, right? So every now and again we get these small moments where we get to see that we're being kind of harsh on ourselves, right? We get these tiny moments where we get to see we're being harsh on ourselves. We need to appreciate, yes, we have a lot of work to do, but we need to appreciate what we've done so far. And Ebo did that, right? And he didn't just do it for Igbo people. One of the One of the things I'd like to see more of, because I think a lot of the channels that are following in his footsteps are like kind of just covering their town. I'll explain who and what is Eboh in a minute, but I'm kind of explaining that right now. You can scroll back to the beginning and see what I said in the beginning, if you want to know more about him. But a lot of people are following in footsteps, kind of like, oh, just you can tell what state they're from, you can tell what town they're from, that kind of thing. There's a lot of bias in what they're doing, and he didn't have that. He wasn't just there to show you, oh, look at all these cool things that my state has or Igbo people have and that kind of thing. He went to every capital in West Africa, or every that to my knowledge. He went to every capital in West Africa. He showed everything that they had. And he went to those places because that's places he had access to. If he had access to Central and East and so on and so forth, he was going to do it as well. He went to all of these places to show you that these cities are beautiful. These cities are just as good as anything you'd see anywhere else in the world, which is hard for Africans to believe. Like I told you how hard it is to believe in the Eboh context. Now let's zoom out and do Africa, right? If somebody told you Kinshasa is a beautiful city, so on and so forth, people might think I'm just, okay, he's being sentimental or he's trying to give them credit where it's not due. But then you get these moments where you get to zoom out and breathe. I'm like, oh my God, wow. Now, I haven't really appreciated this place or this thing, but it's amazing, right? He would go to different communities and there were just things he was discovering that because we're so caught up on negativity, we had no clue they existed. I think it was his Eboh video where they had like an entire like Sea World looking water park place, that kind of thing. And I had no clue this even existed. Not even in Nigeria, but especially in our area in Nigeria, right? He was just showing us all these things, like all these things you can appreciate, so that you don't have to feel that you have to run away from home in order for you to begin life, which is the feeling at home. Hey, how you doing? Is the feeling at home. There's this thing that happens, especially with Igbo people, where because we're so focused on I don't know if it's trauma from the war or what, but we're so focused on the building, building, building that we don't even realize we have things, right? So, and then when we talk about the place we live, right? Of course, I'm in the U.S. right now, but that's just what it is, right? Um, we talk about the place we live like it is the absolute bottom, like it's the absolute bottom. And that's part of that trauma, right? So that a little kid grows up and he's hearing about this place about is like it's the bottom, it's the bottom, it's the bottom. And then you hear these weird stories. I remember when they were bombing Afghanistan or Iraq, Afghanistan, and it was reported that 2 Nigerians died in Afghanistan, right? And then you go, well, what were they doing there? Well, in a lot of people's minds, anything is better than where you're from. Anything is better than where you're from. We had to get bail a cousin out of Libya when they were bombing it because in his mind it's just going to be better than where I'm from, right? Because we don't get those moments to say, no, you have nice things. This is you're doing well. Yes, you feel there's a lot of work to be done, but zoom out. You're doing very well, right? And Eboh used his channel to do that before anyone in the way that he did it, right? I remember the first time I saw his video, I sent him an email. I said, "Hey man, I really love what you're doing," because I saw where this was going. I saw what I think was his vision. I mean, that kind of thing. I saw what I think was his vision, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." I sent him an email about it. I asked him if I can use one of his videos in my videos, right? So I would like buy videos from him, like, okay, I think he would just charge me, like, he didn't give me a price. He's just like, I'm sure he was surprised, like, shit, okay, well, but I think I would do like $50 per video, and after a while I'm just like, oh, just do whatever you want, that kind of thing. And the reason I'm saying this is that over time, I wouldn't say we're friends, but I'd say our channels are kind of allies, right? Because he gets what I'm doing and I get what he's doing. And recently, I've been interviewing people for I got really sick, and so I had to pause on the whole thing. I felt sick both in body and in spirit. And when you're sick in spirit, it's difficult for you to the things that resonate with you. It's difficult for you to connect back with them, that kind of thing. So, but I'm getting better now. All right. I was interviewing different people who I thought it would be important to interview for New Yams or New Yam Festival. And he was the first person I reached out to, and the first interview I did. I'm trying to remember how I scheduled it. The first interview I did. So I do have an interview with him. The interview was done shortly before he passed away. Maybe I want to say 2, 3 weeks before he passed away. It was the last we spoke. He was able to, during the interview, he was able to like share um, his vision and why he's doing what he's doing and his story and so forth. And I hope I need to go back and watch it. I hope I was able to articulate how much I appreciated what he was doing and how much a lot of you guys in my audience appreciated what he was doing with his work, or what he does with his work. And um, I don't know what to do with that interview now, right? I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should put it out. I want to talk to the family first um, before I do it. Uh, so if anybody has any connection to him on a personal level, if you guys can reach out, that'd be great. I think Miss Rancis was a good. She's also a YouTuber. I think she's a good friend of his. I know that she had made a video announcing that he had passed away. And I'm not close to her or anything, but I think that she might be. I'm thinking out loud, by the way. She might be a good person for me to reach out to. But I don't know what to do with the interview because it's yeah, I don't know. It's heavy. But Eboh recently passed away. Like I said earlier, he was popular on YouTube for he was a travel blogger on YouTube and a friend of mine. He toured. He started by touring different cities in Igbo land. So he did Onitsha, Owerri, Aba, Enugu. Then he'd go into these villages. These things we'd call. This is what I mean, right? We would call these places villages, and then he took a drone and went upwards, and we saw, oh wow, this is a city. But we were so stuck in what we thought this thing was that we still use that term village, 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 right? And then he now takes this drone and goes up and shows everybody, you've actually built an entire city. This isn't a village. You've actually built an entire city, and you were so stuck on this perception of yourself as small or having less than, that you can't even see it. That you can't even see it, right? I remember, I don't know if I should even say that. Anyways, I'll say it was kind of goes back to the interview. Forget it. I thought of something funny, and I don't want to share it. But yeah, it goes into that. So you'll go to this like damn near metropolis, and the people there will still call it a village, and they'll say they're in the village and things like that. And the reason I think that his work was so important, and again, I'm not just saying it to he passed, because I think I said it during the interview, and I definitely said it to him in email, or when we communicate back and forth, was that prior to what he was doing, it was very difficult for us to see where we were at, right? If you asked a lot of people at home, especially if they haven't like left the East, it goes the East, then everything else is better, right? Or that all these things don't exist in the East, that kind of thing. Especially those who traveled out in the 90s and early 2000s, and don't go back as often. There's some people that I had. Anyways, yeah, I don't want to say that, but yeah, the having those moments, and this is something I kind of want to share as far as African people go worldwide, right? As far as African people go worldwide, when I grew up here in America, but I grew up in Nebraska, so I wasn't really growing up with the Black community, right? Um, there were Black people there, but our general connection to the wider Black American experience, other than what we were going through where we were at, because we went through it, was like television and things like that. And the way the condition of Black people in America was talked about was so severely negative that it blew my mind that there were actual Black universities, right? Like, like when I heard about them like as they were less than. Yeah, they exist, but they're less than, right? And then now in my adulthood, right? Because I would have loved to go to one. I didn't know it was like a viable option. They're great. And sometimes we don't stop and say, wow, we've done this. This is great. We have arguments about it would be better if it was like that. If it would be better like it's fine. Go take that thing that's itching you and contribute that contribution in making that thing better. But you have these things, you know, and trust me, the way it's happening in America, how this constant negative self talk that happens a lot in America. It's the same thing on the continent. It's the same thing. Everybody in every country in Africa thinks they're in the worst country in Africa, right? That kind of thing, especially Igbo people for some weird reason. So yeah, good friend of mine passed away recently. Haven't been feeling good in general, but I wanted to go live and give my appreciation to him. I'm still thinking out loud of what I should do with the interview because I was doing like a New Yam like interview series, but my passion for it I don't really like interviewing people. My passion for it kind of faded. I didn't want to do it after his interview and who else's. There were about 3 interviews I did, and I said, okay, this is enough. But I will eventually release them. I would like to speak to his people first before releasing it. Um, and so that's what I'm working on right now is getting that connection. And other than that, just keeping up with the channel. Go his channel is Eboh Media, Eboh Media. I like a lot of his early drone work in Eboh land, but you could also see really cool drone shots from all over West Africa. So those of you who are interested in traveling to Africa and you don't know where to start, there's a whole catalog that he built up of all these beautiful places that we have that like you wouldn't have guessed these places look the way they look and function the way they function and are as nice and hospitable as they are. You know, the he has his whole catalog. So I think anybody who's planning on visiting Africa, going back, or even those of us at home that want to travel around a little bit more, because one of the things I really like is that there's this like thanks to people like Woody Maya, um, and others, there's this like growing inter-Africa travel culture that I'm seeing. People are, in Nigeria and they want to go spend the weekend in Namibia or spend vacation in Rwanda or something like that. And these guys are doing phenomenal work in making that happen because trust me, the way Africans talk and think about themselves make a lot of these very normal human experience things such as visiting your neighbor very difficult, right? I remember my in-laws went to Cameroon for a wedding recently, and they were just floored with how beautiful that country is. Floored, right? Like everywhere they're going, it's these hills, and this is very green and waterfalls, and it looks like something out of a storybook, right? And guys like Ebo are allowing everybody to know that this exists. And I'm saying allowing, I'm saying that in the present active tense, because his work doesn't stop upon the passing in this lifetime, right? His work does not pass upon his passing in this lifetime. Um, they're making it possible for us to just like step back and look like, wow, we have great things. It's fine, you know. I'm gonna read some of you guys' comments. Yeah, Wodemaya, Tayo. I'm not gonna. I don't know why I can't read, but a great ambassadors for African travel. Absolutely, absolutely, yes. Sorry for your loss. He sounds like a great soul. I think it's all of our loss, Um, uh, and I don't. It's interesting too because one of the things my culture has taught me is how to understand death, right? I wasn't close enough, like I wasn't close enough to able to act as if I'm feeling the same pain that his family members are feeling. You understand? But he is a friend of mine. He's a person I had a great appreciation for, and so forth. But at the same time, I see his passing as the marker by which, if we have not began celebrating his work and his life, this is the marker for us to begin. All right, that's what I see it as. I see it as a call to action to celebrate this person, celebrate this spirit, to keep it in rotation and keep it within the family. And how do we do that? Uh, if it interests you, if you're pulled in this direction, if it is a part of what resonates with you, you can do similar work to him. You know, you can something as small as taking a nice picture of the place you're at. I remember, I one of the things I've been perpetually homesick since I came to the U.S. And one of the things I used to do online a lot is try to look for like pictures from back home. And it will anybody that's Nigerian would probably understand this. Until I mean, recently it's changed because of guys like Eboh. Like in fact, because of Eboh, I'll just go ahead and say because of Eboh. Um, Finding a nice picture of anywhere in Nigeria is difficult. And it used to be very difficult in like the early ages of the internet. The only thing you ever see was like a car accident. This person was shot, car accident, this person, so on and so forth. You couldn't find anything nice. You couldn't find it, right? And we talk about, oh, Europeans are saying XYZ. That's them. That's them. That's the program they run. They're gonna run that program for it's just what they are. I'm not here to negotiate with them about who they are. They've told you who they are, right? That's them. But we ourselves, right, would we wouldn't show these things. Even my channel, right? Even the channel, there are people walking around with tidbits of this knowledge in their head, but they don't think it's anything worthy of sharing. They don't honestly. They don't think it's worthy of discussing. They don't think it's like important. It doesn't matter. Like okay, even if this is no matter how amazing it is and how immersive and enriching it is, the mentality is if ours is this, the one out there must be better. That's just the mentality. You understand? So then I'm like, okay, me sitting here not in Texas right now, but when I started, I was in Texas. Let me just go ahead and share these things because a lot of people don't know these things, and I think it's important that they know. And then the ones that, oh yeah, I guess that is kind of cool. You know, you know? Like the people at home have sat there and seen somebody make rain come down from the sky. You understand? You don't have to believe me. You know, have seen that, but then they'll think, yeah, well, yeah, you know, okay. If we could just imagine what's going on over there instead of stopping and celebrating the one you already have. This is something I see everywhere there are African people. We do this badly. So people like Tayo, people like Eboh, people like Wode, all of them that are doing this great work are doing reincarnate. He'll reincarnate. Oh God, yeah, okay, low. He'll return. He'll return. For sure. All of these people that are doing this great work are changing that, right? They are changing that. They are making people say something as simple as, I want to, somebody sitting in Nigeria say, I want to vacation to this other state in Nigeria. And as for an American, it's hard to imagine, right? My American audience, it's hard to imagine somebody having that thought because Americans, we don't have that thought. But as the normal thought in Africa, it's normal. You understand? This is that we're at the bottom. So even if we have something good, if we get out, the thing over there is going to be better. Even if we have water, the water over there has to taste better. It has to. You understand? Even if this forest looks beautiful, the forest over there has to look better. So the ability to appreciate these things is impossible, right? Igbo people did the fastest recovery from a war in human history. In human history, right? Wow, it was back. Everything was back. You understand? In human, and for context, right? The government wasn't involved. NGOs, they wasn't involved. Nobody was involved. In fact, I just watched a broadcast saying that it was a British reporter, of course, and he was saying that recovery is not going to be possible if the government doesn't. This is like right when the war ended. It's not going to be, and then poof, it happened. It's the fastest recovery in human history. Human history. But I have to say these things, right? Because we haven't stopped to say, oh wow, we did this. We actually haven't stopped and said, oh wow, we did this. And Eboh, this is why I said it's so significant. Eboh took a drone and said, okay, this Onitsha that was rubble, rubble a generation ago. Zoom up, look at it now. Look what you've done. Well done. You understand? Keep going. You understand? And he took that same thing and he went to Mali, he went to Togo, he went to Ghana, he went to all these different places to show you that, it's this thing we're telling ourselves about ourselves. Again, I don't care what the West says. I'm far enough in my own in my own that that doesn't matter. You telling me the British media said XYZ is the same thing as saying the North Korean media said XYZ. It does okay, that's them. You understand, right? What do we say about ourselves? These guys started changing it. Started changing it. You understand, right? They started change. They're changing that story. And Eboh was the first, especially for our region, right? Specifically, when I say he was the first, I say specifically for our region because I think Tayo and them, they were doing like Lagos and Abuja prior. Lagos and Abuja are not in the Eboh region, right? For those that don't know. But specifically for our region, right? And nobody else is going to do it for us. I know Wode had an episode where those haters ain't gonna do it for us, you know. Those people, they're not gonna do it for us. So he said, look at all these things. Look at all these things, right? These things you are calling villages are actually towns, but you've been so stuck in thinking that this thing has to be the worst thing possible that you still think you're in a village. You're not in a village. You're in a town. You know, somebody will leave their town, go to a smaller town somewhere else, and say, "I'm in a town. I left the village and went to a township." Right. So yeah, um, very unusual live. I wanted to have my lights set up and everything like that. I scheduled it to happen, to come on a few hours. It was supposed to, anyways. The damn YouTube turned it on, so I just said, okay, let me just talk. And I think this is how it was supposed to happen. So, all right, I thought I closed out. Okay, I think I'm back. Cool. Okay. That is beautiful philosophy. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read some of you guys' comments. If you guys have questions about anything, I'll stick around as long as you have questions. We are having classes with Gedu right now, so I do have to get back to helping with that in the capacity that I do. There's a live chat there. All right, so let me see if I can see some of you guys' comment. Glad you're feeling better. Thank you, Isabel. Healing. Sorry for your loss. Thank you very much. RIP to the guy. If you need time to grieve more, I'll understand. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's cool. I appreciate that. My time off hasn't necessarily been grieving, right? Again, I'm not going to pretend to be feeling what his family's feeling, right? And I think that he did more in his time on earth than most people will, period. A lot of these things I'm saying, they sound big. They sound big, right? And it kind of bugs me that I sometimes feel like I'm the only one that knows these, like, don't you see what you did, right? That kind of thing. And so he's began that conversation of people being allowed to see those things. Because if you don't think you have anything, you can't build on top of what you've already done, right? And so he broke a jinx. Eboh broke a jinx that we had in our region, right? That we have as Igbo people, we have as Africans, we have as, you know, the wider African family worldwide. He broke a jinx. Don't have to run away from home, begin life. Yes. That negativity is how gentrification and colonialism takes over undervalued lands, cultural practices. Hey, Zoltar, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. So much of colonialism was Europeans coming and saying, yes, you got this, but check this out, and it working, right? And we talk all this game about we're not colonized and woo, 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 not our ancestors, all that shit. And we still do it. We still do it. You know, we still need that external accolade and that external validation. I just told you Igbo land had the fastest recovery, mass recovery from genocide in human history. By the time Igbo land was rebuilt, they were still trying to rebuild Europe for World War II, right? The Civil War in Nigeria happened, let's call it 20 years after World War II, but they were still rebuilding from World War II by the time Igbo land was done rebuilding from their own. That was more concentrated, right? Bombings from Russia, Britain, Nigeria, Egypt, all these places, right? That'll be dealt with in due time. That'll be dealt with in due time, right? But all these different places, and then after that, the bombings happened. The policy they had in Nigeria. Let me give you guys context if you don't know. So what happened was the Civil War breaks out. You know, they flatten Igbo land. The fighting extends for, you know, a long period of time, and then at the end, they passed a policy where If you had money in a bank, right? They changed the naira note so that the when the Igbos had seceded, all of their money that was in the banks wouldn't count anymore. So if you were a millionaire, you lost everything, right? If you had, let's call it $1,000, I'll just use dollars, it was gone, right? Everything was everything. Anybody that had money, you no longer had money anymore. It was gone. The next thing they did is they passed a thing called abandoned property, where the homes, like when the war broke out, they were going in the cities, they were going to people's, like if you're Eboh, they go to your home and kill you, right? There's a scene in Chimamanda Adichie wrote a book, Half a Yellow Sun, and then there's a scene and they made a movie of it, and there's a scene at the airport where they separate the Igbo people from everybody else, and they shoot all the Igbo people at the airport, right? I can go on about this, right? But there's a lot of really good documentaries on the Biafra War right now. My next video, I kind of mentioned a little bit about it too, right? They shot everybody at the airport that was there. They would have you load up into, like, people were loading up into buses to run back home, and then the driver would pull the bus over and they would shoot everybody in the bus. This is just what they were doing in Nigeria at the time. So the Igbo people were seceding, right? And all of the homes, like let's say now you were living in I don't know, Port Harcourt, right? I hate that. I hate that. There's a town in Nigeria called Port Harcourt, but Nigerians call it Portakot. So let's say you were living there. What they would do was, like, if you ran out of there because of the war, your house was now considered an abandoned property, right? So all of the Igbo people had houses all over the place. Wow, it was all gone. It was like distributed for free to other people. You understand, right? So the idea was, and then of course, 3 million people killed. All of the factories and industries that was built in that place gone, right? 3 million dead, right? So the idea was these people are done. It's these people. It's There's no such a thing as recovering from this, especially if the person that's supposed to help you recover is the federal government of a third world country. It's over. You're not supposed to exist anymore, right? And this Eboh took a drone and showed you that not only did have we recovered from this, but these places we're calling villages are better than a lot of the things Nigerians are calling towns, right? And so, but in all of this, that I'm saying all that just for context. Is for context, right? Um, in all of this, we didn't even realize that. We didn't realize that we had reached the point, or that we had progressed at all. People would call the, like, you'll laugh, as if you're American, you will laugh at some of the things Igbo people call villages. You will laugh, right? You'll call it a village. It'll be like, anyways, I can't use any examples from here, but you'll laugh. But at home, it's normal. We get it. It's because we're kind of stuck. We think that this is like, I don't know. So yeah, I'm grateful he did what he did, because he started a shift, and this shift is going to, as a ripple effect, affect more people than the average person is going to affect in their lifetime. So it's hard for me to say that I'm grieving. I see his passing as a catalyst for celebration. I felt I was celebrating prior, but if you weren't celebrating him and you understand the impact of his work, I don't need to tell you guys I'm like a history person. I love history, and I can, if you read enough history, or you like, not read, if you study enough history, you'll know how things kind of pan out over long periods of time. And I've read enough history to know that what he did will pan out in a tremendous way in hundreds of years from now. And it sounds hyperbolic and it sounds big, but trust me, I know what I'm saying, right? I know what I'm saying. So cool. All right, cool. I'll answer a few questions before I hop. Reincarnated if possible. He said condolences to his family. I didn't even, this live turned on so quick that I didn't even get to bring my Augie. I don't even know where it's at. So, but it's okay. We can just chill. We don't even know that. God and late. You mentioned Western media. Most people don't realize that the media is the new weapon of war. My friend, it's not even the new one. Oh, war is to control the minds and the will. Yeah, every war is, what war is an effort to break your will. That's all war is, right? So hey Namdi, if I wage war, hey buddy, hey, I'm gonna come in just a minute, okay? All right, cool. War is an effort to break somebody's will. That's all war is. If you understand it from that context, you'll get it more, right? So It's I'm going to break this person's will so that I can enforce my will, or so that my will can survive. And I'm going to do everything it takes to break that person's will. That's war, right? Um, Media is used in war before the bullets start going, right? It's will manipulation. It's will manipulation. That's all it is, right? And I'm not saying that all media is that, right? But very few people pick up a camera and show you things just because they want to show it. They have an intention, right? Media has always been a weapon of war. And so when you say that XYZ people have nothing, it's very easy for you to take what they have because they think it's nothing. They think it's nothing. I think it's the Vatican website. They're gonna demonetize the shit out of me for this. If you go to the Vatican, it's something Vatican.com. It's like a Vatican website. They sell a lot of like Eboh artifacts on there. Awful. I say artifacts, they're not artifacts. They're awful, right? They sell awful. They sell different Ubunsi and all these different things that people use in our traditional sciences. They sell them there, and they sell them for like if you were to buy an let's say if you're trying to buy an Ikenga, the Ikenga will cost more than a figurine of Jesus. The Eboh Ikenga on the Vatican website costs more, and think of the place they're selling it at, by the way. The Eboh Ikenga on the Vatican website costs more than the Jesus. And I'm not going to say how much it costs because people are so deranged that the next thing they'll do is start selling, that kind of thing, right? But the Eboh Ikenga will cost more than the Jesus figurine, right? But the way you get that Eboh Ikenga is you tell that person that thing is nothing and it's worth nothing and it's in fact bad to hold and bad to have around you, that kind of thing. And they say, okay, all right, sure, pastor, sure, priest, what should I do? Bring it here, bring your fathers, bring your uncles, bring all of them here, bring it before us. I'll cleanse them in the name of Jesus, and then I'll sell it to the poacher, and the poacher will sell it to the Vatican website or some European, and then they'll sell it for thousands and thousands of dollars, right? So yeah, it's easy to take things from people when you convince them they have nothing. I'll use an American example, right? Because I've spent more of my life in America than here. If you'd hear the way we as Black people, again, forget them folk, we as Black people talk about what Black people have, and you grew up in a place like, let's say, where I grew up in Nebraska, where like I'm not really with like other Black people. I mean, I'm here with a bunch of here and there, but there's no real like it's not like Atlanta and Houston and New York and things like that, you know when gentrification starts, you just think that not starts, but like when it kicks into the gear that it's in now, you would just think that, oh, well, it was just a bunch of ghettos anyway. Like it was a bunch of then you start hearing about, no, they took my grandmother's house. They took my grandfather's house. This house has been in our for XYZ generations. And all these, you hear about all these homes being taken away and all these neighborhoods being uprooted and all these traditions and all these, they were recently trying to take away this, in Houston. They were trying to buy like a jazz musician's home. It was a famous jazz musician's home, and they were able to stop it by turning it into a museum, right? And just you start hearing all these things, and you're like, wait, I didn't even know you guys had all that, right? I can assume you have it, but I didn't know you had it to the volume that you had it, right? We need Black businesses. We need to have Black businesses. And you go to Houston, they got like blocks of blocks and blocks and blocks of it, right? I haven't even been to Atlanta. Oh, we need more Black people in power. You go there, they're the mayor, they're the judges, they're very high rank police force, they're very high rank in the media there. It's like why do we talk like this? Why do we talk? We can say we want better without having to pretend we have nothing. We can't. We know if you keep saying you have nothing, it makes it very easy for somebody to come in and take the thing you have. Because once they take it, it'll be very hard for you to make an argument for them to take that thing. No, stop. That's mine. I thought you had nothing. Oh, that kind of thing. Because nobody else will believe you. I'm using the American example. We're not exempt at home. We're not exempt at home in Nigeria. I promise you, people. I ask people, where are you from? Oh, well, my mom's from here, my dad's from here. No, you're from where your dad is, and there's oil under your land. And it's in your name. You see what I'm saying, right? Oh, he just. But what about my mom? Listen to me. There's a patch of land where your dad is from, and there's oil there, right? Quit acting like it's nothing. All right, cool. All right, I gotta go, guys. As always, just support on the Patreon, patreon.com/the medicine shell. I'm gonna try to connect with somebody with the family before I put the interview out. I kind of want, I don't know. I think it'd be the right thing to do. Something about it feels weird. Something about it feels weird. So I want to talk to them first. And if I don't get a hold of anybody, I won't put it out. So, all right, guys, take care. It's been good. Peace.